she has to live with herself knowing that she's a coward. If there's a mother out there and her daughter is doing that, then she's a coward.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. If you're watching this video and it's Salah time, please pause it and go pray and come back when you're done. Please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. I was sent a recent podcast featuring brothers Mohammed Hijab and Daniel Haqiqatjou discussing the very controversial and the very necessary topic of parental alienation that is becoming very prominent between divorced Muslim couples in the West. What was especially surprising was that the brothers spoke about how the un-Islamic and unfair divorce laws and child custody laws which are in place within the Western family court system are being utilised by practising Muslim women. I've heard of many cases of non-Muslim women and even liberal cultural Muslim women who identify more with a Western outlook than an Islamic one, abusing these laws as a revenge tactic against their exes. But to hear about practising Muslim women selling out Islam to gain a legal advantage during divorce or child custody proceedings really did shock me. But let's be completely fair. Not all practising Muslim women in the West engage in such behaviours, and if there is actual abuse in a relationship towards the children, then sisters are justified in protecting their kids from harm, and also women are not at fault for all divorces. However, we must also be completely honest and address that this type of child custody revenge culture has become a big problem within the Muslim community in the West. And I must also add that Brother Muhammad's and Brother Daniel's discussion was from the context of non-abusive Muslim marriages that have resulted in divorce, where the fathers want to be a part of their children's lives after a separation has occurred. Let's look at the first clip where they discuss why this problem is occurring between Western Muslim divorced couples.
I think that the Muslim women would understand their rights in marriage and their responsibilities. They would have that religious knowledge and they would fear Allah. Just because you're in a marriage and maybe the feminist laws will say that you are entitled to half of your husband's property, that you fear Allah and that you're only going to be entitled to what Allah says that you're entitled to. You're not going to take what the this feminist system will grant you. You're not going to take custody of the children in this unjust way and prevent the father from actually seeing his own children.
Yes.
But it's non-existent. The level of either the women who, some of them very knowledgeable, maybe you can even call them an alima, is going into the family court system in the US.
Yes.
And she's extracting things that are not her haqq. She's depriving the father of custody or even visitation of his flesh and blood, causing untold amounts of trauma and distress and basically ruining the lives of religious men. You know, this is not liberal Muslims who have no connection to deen. These are religious practicing. Unfortunately, that's the scandalous thing about it.
I've actually dealt with people have come crying in a very hard, mentally troubling time, asking, what can I do with the situation? They want to know their rights. They want to see their children. It actually enrages me, I'll be honest with you, bro. It's one of the worst things. And let's just put this on the table. When someone does this, they are doing some of the gravest sins in Islam. The first couple of pages of the Qur'an condemns these actions, the ones who break what Allah has ordered to be united. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that someone who tries to cut ties of kinship will not enter Jannah. There's one very interesting hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was reprimanding and scolding a type of people, the ones who cut between people who love each other. For a woman to do this, it's actually not for her children. She's doing this for herself, because if it was for her children, she'll know, Daniel, that this is not in the best interest of her children.
Like one specific thing I think that the Muslim women do, this is the sad thing, they'll appeal to Islam and they'll say that Islam has made my husband more of a misogynist because of teachings in Islam. And my husband, recited these verses. They have a patriarchy in Islam.
They do that.
Yeah, they'll cite things like, oh, he's in favor of the concept of jihad. He's potentially jihadi. Reaches the level of nifaq and kufr. And it's the solicitor or the lawyer
honestly, a woman like
them.
that, honestly, it's just horrible. I mean, to think that human beings like that even exist.
When it comes to Muslim women, they have been fed this victim narrative.
Yes.
That they are oppressed by Muslim men. Muslim men are more tough. And the judges in the cases take that into account. Like, oh, he's a Muslim man. He's going to be in favor of wife beating. He's going to be in favor of this and that. So they really milk it even more. The Muslim women, because of this victim narrative and how Islam is patriarchal. So it's actually worse than if you had a secular woman who is going to be even, in a certain sense, more even-handed.
I feel like what's happening is there's a comparison happening with a lot of the Muslim women in our societies in the UK and the US, Canada and other places. And they're thinking, well, these non-Muslim women can do careers and these kind of things and have lived this kind of equal life. And really what's happening is they have a pent-up resentment. And when the divorce happens, she feels like all these concepts of obedience and all this kind of things no longer apply to me. Therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm not only going to take my rights, but I'm going to compensate myself for all of the perceived subjugation that I had throughout the marriage. Because she has that resentment, like, oh, I had to obey you, now I don't have to obey you, religiously or otherwise. I'm going to take my revenge, effectively. I consider it to be treachery to the Muslim community, to Islam, to Allah, His Messenger, to the man, to their own children. That must be described as evil from the Islamic perspective and otherwise.
Once again, it was very surprising to hear the brothers speak about practicing sisters in the US and the UK utilising the family court system dishonestly to extract revenge on their ex-husbands. According to the Quran and Sunnah, a wife has financial rights over her husband, which are the mahar upon marriage, as well as spending and accommodation during the marriage. And she has non-financial rights, such as being treated in a decent and reasonable manner, and not being treated in a harmful way by her husband. If a woman asks for a divorce because the husband is not fulfilling her rights, or because he has fallen into sin, then the husband must divorce her and give her all her rights in full, which are the full mahar amount that was agreed upon, both the earlier portion and any outstanding amount, reasonable maintenance, including food, drink, accommodation and clothing during the iddah period after divorce, which is around 4 months, and after this period she is not entitled to maintenance or accommodation. However, if she has custody of her children from him, then in that case he must also give her payment for custody and breastfeeding, as well as maintenance for the children. Setting the amounts of payment and maintenance is done so by a qadi or judge. It's not permissible for the husband to put pressure on his wife so that she will give up any of the rights I just mentioned. However, if a woman asks for a divorce from the husband with no cause, the husband can ask her to return the mahar amount that he gave her in return for divorcing her. This type of divorce is called khulla. In this case, the only rights she has are payment for breastfeeding and custody, as well as maintenance for the child who is still being breastfed. The responsibility of bringing the kids up after a divorce is on the mother until a male child reaches 7 years of age and until a female child reaches puberty. However, again, the responsibility of the children's expenses are on the father. After the kids reach these milestones, the father has the right to take full custody of the children. If during the time period before their kids reach their milestones the mother marries someone else, then she loses the right to keep the children with her. And after reaching puberty, the kids have the right to choose which parent they want to live with. Also, whether the children live with a father or mother, neither parent has the right to stop the other parent from seeing the children. I agree with Brother Daniel when he said sisters must learn about the religious rulings on our rights and responsibilities in regards to marriage, divorce and child custody, and put them before the rulings of secular Western legal systems, as our deen comes before any and all man-made laws. Using an unfair legal system for revenge on an ex-husband by depriving them of custody or visitation is haram. As Brother Hijab stated, the Quran and Sunnah clearly say this action is a major sin, and it not only causes harm to an ex-husband, but ultimately it hurts the children also by negatively impacting their mental development and well-being. Again, shockingly, Brother Daniel spoke about sisters making statements of kufr or disbelief by using negative stereotypes of Islam and Muslim men in court to gain a legal advantage. Astaghfirullah. Again, this is haram. My sisters, we must not emulate non-believing women no matter the circumstances or how wronged you feel you were by your ex-husband. In Islam, even if he's not the best dad, he still has rights to see his kids. Let's take a look at the next clip where the brothers talk about the negative implications of fatherless children growing up in single-parent households.
Since a father figure in one's life causes all kinds of problems, increase in promiscuity is a big one.
Yeah.
You know, daughters that do not have a father presence in their life are more likely to engage in promiscuity, more likely to engage in zina, more likely to engage in immodest behavior. Boys also suffer from all kinds of psychological problems. This is documented: increase in drug addiction, increase in depression, increase in dropping from school, increase in falling into crime and being prosecuted for crimes. All of these dimensions are elevated when you don't have the father figure present in the lives of children, whether male or female, and your children are going to suffer. So some of these mothers, even if you tell them the stats, they have this emotional desire to take revenge or to somehow make their husbands suffer in this very unjust way. Weak men. I think it has something to do with the fact that a lot of these men have been raised by single mothers. They haven't had the masculine figure in their life, the father or even grandfather, paternal line, to show them, you know, what it means to be a man and how to really have that sense of himma or the sense of responsibility.
I can tell you from my own experience that, I mean, it was a craving that I had, bro. Like, you know, the father not being there. This was, I would never put this down to my mum. It wasn't her decision at all. Just the pain, really, of not having a father there. It's a treasure, or it's a gift that if you remove from a young man, for me, it did cause these problems. Masculinity, if you like, is not something you can read in books and try. If you don't have that, it becomes an uphill struggle. It really does. If you remove the father figure from the child, it will cause all kinds of pain for that child, and it will deprecate and diminish their childhood, and they'll have that craving that no woman can, sorry to say, she cannot fill this gap. Just like no man can fill the mother's gap, and the mother's more important in Islam in many ways, not in general, but in many ways, than the father in many ways. Having said that, you need the father. When it's a mother single parent household, the delinquency and the crime problems and all that kind of stuff is actually more problematized than it is with the father. So removing this great advantage to a child's life, to be honest, it shows extreme selfishness, not just selfishness. It shows a kind of selfishness that you would actually question, sorry to say this, the motherhood of that person. Say, do you even deserve to have children? You have kids, but you want to remove their advantages. You want to scar them, you want to damage them, you want to deprecate, you want to hurt them.
As a woman, the biggest thing that stood out for me was when Brother Daniel spoke about statistics on how girls without their dads are more prone to promiscuity, a lack of dressing modestly, and having psychological issues. Bad decisions for females early on can ruin their lives forever. And for boys without fathers, he said, the stats say that they are more prone to taking intoxicants, criminality, prison, poor mental health, bad grades, a weak mentality, and a lack of solid male identity. And as Brother Mohammed stated, women who put revenge against their exes before their kids having a happy childhood are selfish and are not responsible mothers. The pain and trauma that parental alienation causes a child is not worth it at all. Brother Hijab was right when he said a mother will never fill the void of a father and vice versa. Mothers embody qualities such as love, kindness, patience and sacrifice that leave a lasting impact on their children. Through their words, actions and interactions, they teach important life lessons, Islamic values and morals. A father's role is to provide his children with a loving and peaceful environment and lead them towards loving Allah and enjoying a successful, happy and righteous life. He is responsible for the upbringing of his children and teaching them through his example how to be good and successful people. Let's take a look at the final clip where the brother suggests possible solutions to combat the parental alienation problem for Western Muslims.
Obviously, Khilafah is the solution, inshallah, but there are more immediate things that can be done in terms of educating the community on the rights and responsibilities of a wife and a husband, because even the idea of obedience, a lot of Muslim women, even the ones who are religious, they are practicing the deen, they're going to the masjid, they're following shuyukh and watching their feel-good lectures. They've never heard of this concept.
A lot of these lecturers actually omit it intentionally.
Yeah, they omit it intentionally, and this has been a disaster. If the judicial system, if the legal system, if the social fabric of feminism, all of this is encouraging women to divorce and take maximum resources, take custody. The last line of defense is fear of Allah, is the deen. And the woman who does fear Allah, she fears the hellfire. She will not be influenced by the entire world telling her to violate the deen. But that last line of defense, who has actually destroyed it? It's these compassionate imams, these simp imams, who are constantly promoting this kind of victim mentality. They're too scared to say one thing against women, tell women to fear Allah, tell women that, look at what this woman did in this court case, she is a munafiqah. They have these kinds of lectures against Muslim men. What about this kind of treachery?
I think one of the most powerful things a man can do to leverage the situation is actually spend time with his children, as mundane as that might sound, because a child remembers when their parent is involved. If you want somehow your child not to be the subject of alienation and brainwashed by the parents, but then you're a runaway father, effectively, deadbeat dad, you're not going to achieve your function. There's no way, even if you're right about what you're saying, kids know that, okay, they've put this person, my mother has put this much work into me, and my father has put this much work into me, and there's no comparison between the two. So I'm choosing my mother every day, even if she's wrong. So what you have to do as a father is show love and show affection and show time and respect to your children. Because love is one of the most important leverages that you can actually have.
So the number one thing, if you're married, Don't let your wife socialize and have friends with these kinds of divorced
That's
women.
a very good point. Yeah.
It's extremely dangerous, because if she doesn't even have the idea of divorcing you or going down this path of separation, oftentimes divorced women, misery loves company, right? They'll try to egg her on and push her and prod her to actually pursue this kind of action against the husband. Many families have been broken up because of these conniving women. We need to really emphasize the evil nature of using this court system to inflict punishment and harm. And we create a kind of shame culture out of it. Shame 100%. Is a necessary part of Islam.
1,000,000%, yeah. The hadith says that whoever sees an evil deed, change it with your hand. If there's a woman out there, she knows one of her best friends is effectively withholding her kids from their ex-husband or whatever it may be, and the father of their children, and she's not saying a word, then she's a coward. She has to live with herself knowing that she's a coward. If there's a mother out there and her daughter is doing that, then she's a coward. I'm not saying you have to mention it all the time, but at least have a strong stance on it.
They don't even feel it in their heart. They don't see that this is injustice, so they don't even have the weakest level of iman.
They would feel it if it was their son. Yeah. That's when they would feel it.
As Brother Daniel said, the best solution would be an Islamic judge giving a fair ruling on the matter. However, this is not a reality in the West. He also suggested educating sisters, which is the purpose of my video. Brother Haqiqatjou spoke about the Islamic stance on a wife's obedience towards her husband being alien to many practicing sisters in the West who listen to certain liberal imams and speakers that innovate Muslim theology in order to make it more in line with secular culture, to the detriment of us all, especially Muslim women. Let's explore the concept of a wife's obedience to her husband in Islam. The husband is the protector and maintainer of the wife and has the responsibility of heading the household because he is more rational in thinking and she is more emotional. It is obligatory for her to obey him. The reasoning is that men are more able to bear this responsibility, just as women are more able than men to take care of the children and household affairs. So each of them has his or her natural role and position. In Islam, men are obliged to spend on their wives. The wife does not have to work or earn a living. Even if she becomes rich, the husband is still obliged to spend on her within reason. Because he bears the responsibility of spending, he is made the protector and maintainer of his wife and is put in charge of the household. A woman will be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for her obedience to her husband. However, this obedience should never involve disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ said, there is no obedience to any created being if it involves disobedience towards the Creator. Additionally, just as the husband has the right to be obeyed, Islamically he also has to treat his wife kindly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated in the Quran, women have rights over their husbands in regards to living expenses, similar to those of their husbands over them in regards to obedience and respect. According to Islam, a husband should not mistreat or oppress his wife. Rather, he should deal with her in a wise manner and tell her to do things which are in her best interests, his best interests and the interests of the household, in a kind and gentle manner. As Brother Daniel stated, brothers and sisters have to defend themselves from being corrupted by liberal culture and Western divorce and custody laws by knowing what our religion permits and staying within those bounds. And in order to do so, sisters must have a sense of shame and we must fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I agree when he said sisters should not hang around with women who are home wreckers, and I would like to add we should also not be sharing details of our marriages with such people either. In my opinion, this is essential so that we avoid falling into the trap of hating and competing with one another, and instead we should complement each other's respective roles as Muslim men and women and stand united against non-Islamic values. Also, Brother Muhammad was spot on when he said if sisters see such things occurring with other women, we should advise them against it, because if this becomes the norm, our own sons or brothers or other male family members could be next in line to be on the receiving end of broken families and lost children. And I'll end on the point Brother Hijab made about how it is essential for fathers, even if you're not separated, to make time for your children and show them unconditional love. Spending quality time with your wife and kids is very necessary to maintain love and respect in your relationships, inshallah. Thank you for watching. Make sure to join my free Telegram group via the link in the description, where we as Muslims can speak freely and without censorship about issues like this, and in order to guide and support each other in our deen. And remember to like, subscribe and become a channel member for access to exclusive content. Until next time, inshallah, Jazakallah khair.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah